Champion Hurdle is the highlight of the first day of the Cheltenham Festival, and I'm sure we'll all be back here in March for that. Catherine, you're a well-known, acknowledged Hurricane Fly fan, and if we were looking at perhaps another contender in the race, what do you think would be the main danger to Hurricane Fly this season?
As we stand in time now, I'd say the new one. The turn of foot that he showed at Kempton on Sunday was incredible. I know obviously Rock on Ruby had his problems and the other opposition obviously weren't in his class, but the way he quickened, and we saw him quicken here, and the Neptune from the last up the hill is incredible, and he loves the place, you know. And I must admit, I'm absolutely terrified by the new one's turn of foot. With regards to Hurricane Fly, just look at the flags. You know, he's a dual champion hurdle winner. He's rated 175, only a pound off the mighty Isterbrack. 16 grade 1 wins. He doesn't even really like it round here. I'm convinced that Cheltenham doesn't play to his strengths, but he's overcome that twice. To not like it round here and win, you have to be a great horse. Desert Orchid showed that. Hurricane Fly's done that. He seems to be Marmite. You either love him or hate him. He's a horse that divides opinion. I keep saying that. I want to see how Hurricane Fly comes back. I want to see how he is, more notably in the paddock, because you can tell how he is. If he's quiet, then you know there's a bit of a problem. But I think it's well documented that he actually bit Willie Mullins on the arse before the Champion Hurdle. You know, and that just he is a bit of a head case. When I saw him in the pre-parade ring here before this year's Champion Hurdle, I was absolutely delighted with what I saw. He had two handlers and he's carting them round. See how he is. May clash with O'Connor early on in Ireland. That's fantastic. Great to see them clashing. I don't get the argument of what's he beat, because people keep bringing up 1,000 Stars. All right, fair enough, but for 1,000 Stars is a dual French champion hurdle winner and a county hurdler. He's a good horse in his own right. Hurricane can only beat what's put in front of him.
Stats aren't going to beat him, but 1950 Hatton's Grace 10-year-old, 1980 was the last 10-year-old winner with Sea Pigeon. Does that concern you at all? He will be 10 in March. No,
they said he couldn't win it as a 9-year-old. I think at the moment, obviously, the new one's sprung to the head of the market. I think you've got something like Hurricane Fly in at 11-2. Obviously, we've got Jeff coming on in a minute. He'll be able to give us the full rundown of the Champion Hurdle prices. I'm tempted to back him now at 11-2, because if Hurricane turns up here in the same vein of form as he was last year, then he's going to be very hard to beat. That said, it's tougher. The new one, O'Connor, they're all lining up, but it's still him for me at this stage.
Looks like a really competitive race, and a few of the fancy ones mentioned there. Dan, any word for any outsiders, or perhaps any younger horses that could come through and improve?
Yeah, I think obviously bar the new one, I think the biggest challenge which Hurricane Fly will face will probably be in his own backyard with O'Connor and Jeski this year. You look at I think during the summer there was a lot of rubbish talked on Twitter about O'Connor not being right or anything like that. He misses, I think, was going to be in the Cesarewitch, and then all of a sudden now, obviously all those rumours are true, and then he turns up in the October handicap last week, not under the vigorous of rides, out wide. There was gaps was there for, I think, if you wanted to give him a hard race, you could have capitalised on him, but I thought
it's quite easy towards the end and last furlong.
Yeah, and in the end of the day, he's only beaten a couple of lengths into 4th place. So for me, I think that's going to be the Hurricane Fly's biggest challenge. It's not about coming back here in March. I think he's going to get beat a couple of times back in Ireland. I think O'Connor will give him something to think about in the Morgiana Hurdle. If not, Jeski will give him something to think about in the Irish Champion. And like I say, the performance last week with the new one, coming into the straight, I thought he was beat. I thought the distress signals to a point of body language on Sam Tristan-Davies did give you an idea that he's...
As soon as Sam sort of stirs him up, though, he does tend to respond and go away. We saw that here this March.
Yeah, and like you're saying, then on the back, if you go back through some of his form last year, he was out pretty early, and every time once that went after him, he got something. I think for me that's a sign of quality horse. Yeah, so it'd be interesting. For me, it's at the moment it's the race of the Cheltenham Festival.
Very competitive.
Yeah, and like you say, off there you asked me for an outsider to follow. I think the only outsider I can think of is Jeski, and he's 10-1, so it's hardly a bit of an outsider. And that's even before we mentioned my 10 or yours. So it's deep. It's a very deep race, and it's going to be like I say, a race to savour.
Thank you. My 10 to yours, Rory. A horse that there's quite a bit of buzz about on Twitter, and had a large reputation when he came here to the festival for the Supreme. Very fancied, carried a lot of punters' money, and mine included actually, after his impressive performance in the Betfair Hurdle. Do you think he can step up to the plate this year and become a champion hurdle contender?
I think he can become a contender. Whether he can really bridge that gap and show himself to be good enough to win a champion hurdle is up for debate. I don't think he lost much cast in defeat in the Supreme. I thought it was one of the races of the festival, and one of the rides of the festival, one of the best rides I've ever seen at Cheltenham, quite frankly, by Ruby Walsh. And while my tender years couldn't get past, he kept going up the hill. He ran at least as well as he did when winning the Betfair at Newbury, and he's clearly come on in leaps and bounds. He has looked a little soft in a finish once or twice, but I wouldn't overly concentrate on that. I think the big deal with him now is that he's really stepping up to the plate. He's a horse who's he developed well last season, but they always were looking at the Betfair Hurdle as a plan, and he was at his peak for that. And I think that the deal was that he was ahead of the curve at that stage. So he arrived at the festival with a big enough rating to win most Supremes, but that's not really the way the game works. And he's got to show that he can push that rating on again this year.
So opening race could be crucial this time around.
Yeah, listen, he's going to bolt up in at least one trial this season. He's going to look the real deal because he's such an impressive looking horse, and when he wins something on the bridle, he'll beat good horses without turning a hair, and he will be backed for the champion hurdle as a result. But I think when push comes to shove, when he faces the acid test, he's got one or two that are a little bit better than him to deal with.
We saw a reappearance of a couple of contenders at the weekend. Well, three, I guess, if you include Rock on Ruby. We have the new one, and also Arcona running in a flat race over in Ireland. What did you make of their performances?
The new one was very impressive in the end, and he just showed that he's moving past the old guard. He had far too many guns for Rock on Ruby. I see absolutely no reason why that form should ever be reversed. Simple as that. And that tells you the story of the champion hurdle this year. The old guard have done well, but their time has passed now, and the new guard are coming through to take over. And the new one leads the new guard here. My tender years will win his races as well, but I think the new one will essentially be the best of the hurdlers this side of the Irish Sea. And I think Arcona is ready to take over the mantle of Hurricane Fly this time around as well. He was just strikingly impressive in the Triumph Hurdle. You've only got to look back at that race, and there's no flaw in him at all. And although there were one or two adverse rumours about him this summer, none of those seem to be backed up. And I thought he ran an eye-catching race over 1.5 miles at the weekend. Wasn't touched with a whip, wasn't knocked about at all, not beaten far into fourth. That's as good as he's ever done on the flat, essentially. He's going to step forward again over hurdles this year, and he will be unbeatable in Ireland. It's just a case of whether My Tender Years and the new one can carry the battle to him in March. But the new guard will definitely be stamping their authority on the race.
So a hugely competitive race even at this stage. Any others that we haven't mentioned that you like?
No, the rest of them are just lagging behind. I mean, Jetski in Ireland has chances again. He's coming through to, in a normal year you would fancy him to throw in a big challenge to Hurricane Fly, but he showed in the Supreme that he was just a little bit shy of the very best, and while he'll run well this season, I think he'll end up coming up short again.
Thank you. We have a bookmaker here today, Jeff Banks. If I were to give you those £50, Dave, where would you, Dave, where are you going? Where would you put the £50 on in the champion hurdle market?
Oh, in the champion hurdle market, that throws me. If I'm entirely honest, I've got no strong opinion at this particular juncture, like Rory, about champion hurdle. If you give me 50 and I put it on something now, it'd probably be Arcona, truth be told. I think already, as Rory says, and I was one of the doubters at the time, but already we've seen the form franked 3 times with Diacali, with Lac Fontana and Samatagal here at the weekend, all sort of coming out and winning their respective races.
There was kind of a little bit of negative comment, perhaps people expecting too much from the reappearance in the flat race in Ireland. You wouldn't hold much store by that?
Nothing at all. I wouldn't worry about the weekend at all. I think he's going to have bigger targets, shall we say, throughout the season. So he was, whether win, lose or draw, you can sort of forget all about what happened at the weekend. I was one of the knockers at the time. I said at the time, I want to see the form start to get stacked up before I was sort of jumping in, and
but that's now happening.
Exactly, it's starting to happen. So absolutely, I've got no problem really with O'Connor now. I think he's a rock solid favourite. The new one, I was at Kempton on Sunday, saw both the new one and Rock on Ruby, and I think what makes it all the more impressive was that Rock on Ruby looked slightly more forward, I thought, in the paddock. The new one just absolutely took him to the cleaners. You can argue that Rock on Ruby didn't like the ground, and you could make a very sort of weak case out that now at 25s for a horse that's won a champion hurdle and finished second, that he's probably a bit overpriced. But as Rory says, the new guard are coming through now, I think.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks for the 50.
You're welcome. Moving on to Cheltenham and the festival, punters like to look ahead, and in terms of form, Cheltenham form is always significant. Festival form from one festival to the next. Yeah. So, looking at the Champion Hurdle and the Gold Cup, in those two races, would there be any horses that you'd be keen to avoid laying?
Keen to avoid laying? No. I mean, it's the Champion Hurdle, if we're talking about that, is obviously a cracking race. We've got
very competitive this year.
Very, very competitive. I mean, Hurricane Run's got absolutely no chance of winning this. I mean, he's 10 years of age, and there are two up-and-coming superstars in the new one, obviously, and our Connor, who won the Triumph Hurdle in such impressive style. And these horses will obviously be targeted for this particular race. Hurricane Run will do his standard, Hurricane Fly, will do his standard trick of, running in short field events in Ireland, slow pace, quick up, and he'll be winning those, and one would expect that. But as far as the Champion Hurdle is concerned, that will be an entirely different ball game this year from last year, where I thought the Champion Hurdle came up a little bit weak.